Hello and welcome to the Road to Innsmouth. Join us as we take a journey into the world of the strange, creepy and unexplained. We're your hosts. I'm Matt.
And I'm Gareth.
Today's episode is on the infamous Victorian legend known as Spring-Heeled Jack. First, we would like to give a quick shout out to our friends over at CryptidTV. Please go and have a look at them and give them a like, give them a follow. They're on Facebook and Twitter. They're good guys, interested in all things strange and paranormal and creepy. And I think their Twitter's CryptidTV UK, but I put the description in our YouTube episode and on this podcast episode, so there'll be a link there anyway. Cool, right. Well, Spring-Heeled Jack, for those of you who don't know, was a somewhat of a boogeyman back in the Victorian times, particularly around London and the Midlands. Probably start off with just a couple of the first reported attacks.
Yeah, the first sightings.
Yeah. So the first official sighting that's fairly agreed upon was in October of 1837, where a servant girl named Mary Stevens was walking towards Lavender Hill in London. She was walking through Clapham Common, where a man jumped out at her and grabbed her tightly, and was apparently so strong he managed to immobilise her. And he began to assault her and rip at her clothing with apparently cold talon-like fingers. She screamed so loud that he let her go and made his escape. A search party was sent out, but no trace of him could be found. And then the very next day, the same attacker struck again. It was very close to the first victim's house, but this time he jumped out in front of a coach, causing it to swerve severely, crash and severely injure the coachman. Several witnesses also then saw him leap straight over a 9-foot fence while laughing in a high-pitched voice.
Did they go? Is that the one where they went looking for him, but they couldn't find him, but all they could hear was him laughing in the distance?
Yeah, I think so.
Throughout
Yeah, it's about
like mocking him.
7 different retellings of this.
Yeah, I read one that he was like they chased after him or gave chase and couldn't find him, but all they could do was keep hearing him laughing.
Yeah,
like he was mocking him in the distance.
The Mayor of London got many more reports over the next few months all over, and had been told of several similar accounts of young girls and women being assaulted and scared by this individual. He himself was quite sceptical, but had heard a report from a trusted individual from this point made sure that the individual would be brought to justice and caught. I believe police searches were put out every day throughout London, and rewards were given for information.
Yeah.
So.
Well, they wasn't sure if they thought it could be more than one person, didn't they? Doing like a prank sort of.
Yeah, there was a report, or at least some people believed it could be fairly rich, well-to-do individuals who are essentially bored and thought it'd be more fun to scare people by putting various sort of Halloween-type clothing and going out into the night.
Out. Yeah, so they thought it'd be good. But then obviously it turned into more attacks, didn't it? Like the ripping of the clothes, the roping.
From there, sort of spread out and is reported from all the way from London, Liverpool, and even in Scotland.
Well, there has been reports in Europe as well.
Yeah, but I'm never quite sure whether.
I presume it's a description. It's similar, not the actual.
Yeah, the ones I read, I could never work out. Although they were given a date of around the same time, I couldn't find any reports that were made at the time. All the reports were written later saying it happened in the past. So I'm never sure how influenced they were by the reports in London.
Right. But it's happening now. 2012 is the recent one.
Yeah, there was. Yeah.
I thought there were still reports in Europe happening, like modern day ones as well. Yeah,
it's become somewhat of a boogeyman character sort of throughout. Mainly because I think of the imagery is quite good. But also because most reports are like of a praying stalker at night. It's probably quite deep within the psyche of people anyway, isn't it? So
yeah, I don't know if the other reports are like the most recent one, the 2012 one. They said it was him because he jumped high again, didn't he?
Yeah.
Like 15 feet in the air, he could clear walls.
Yeah,
15-foot walls. There's not many people who can do that.
No, I've got that here. Where was it? That was in Epsom in Surrey on Valentine's Day. So family travelling home on the Yule bypass when a figure dashed down in front of the car they were travelling in and jumped a 15-foot embankment and disappeared the other side.
Yeah. Isn't it like the early report when he scared that when he jumped out in front of the horse and cart and made it crash? He then jumped over a 15-foot wall or something.
That was a 9-foot. He cleared a 9-foot fence straight away. Yeah.
Well, even that's quite impressive, 9 foot. without
yeah,
any
yeah.
aid.
Yeah, a standing jump at 9 foot is, yeah.
Yeah. They thought maybe it was like he had springs in his boots, like moon boots or something, that would give him this jump.
Yeah, well, it's quite interesting because obviously this time was a very enlightened time in terms of science, but also a huge time for like horror, with penny dreadfuls being such a big thing in Victorian times, and
Yeah.
Frankenstein with Mary Shelley and all that. So the idea of this sort of creature stalking London,
Yeah,
was, I'd imagine, quite rife.
Well, yeah, and yeah, like I said, the Penny Dreadful place stoked that.
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
Because I think minus the jumping, if you could work out some way of being able to jump 9 foot in the end and land safely without breaking your ankles.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at it now, a lot of the guys who do parkour, the way the speed they move, they could easily clear a 9 foot, like with just literally one spring off the wall.
Well, yeah, you'd have to put, but they're saying he just jumped there.
Yeah, well, I mean, if it was like, remember, it was a gaslit town at the time, so it wouldn't be. If you had the skills, it wouldn't be necessarily the hardest. It was just not a thing that was known about at that time.
But then he also had blue fire.
Yeah, we'll get to that in a minute. Actually, that's quite interesting. Well, the other thing is that they believed he was a shapeshifter, or maybe even potentially even a devil. At a completely unlinked account, which kind of draws on the shape-shifting thing, was issued from the Brighton Gazette in 1838 as well. That's sort of fairly erroneously linked a Spring Hill Jack attack in Rose Hill, which is actually just down the road from me in Sussex, where a gardener was apparently chased around his garden by what he thought was a snarling bear until it kind of got bored and then clear jumped over a fence. And I think, from what I've read of the reports, the actual witness was the one who linked that to a Spring Hill Jack attack, and then obviously the papers ran with it because it makes good papers reading. But I don't. Yeah, that's a weird one that's always popped up, but has like no real link at all.
No, but some of the ones in Europe also. There's other stories that have said he looked like a bear.
Yeah, and also a couple of other people are linked to it. Where one used to wear an oilskin coat, and the other one, I think, wore a wolf or a bearskin coat. Was that one Evan?
I read he like under his coat he wore oilskin. So whatever coat he had on
to give it like a slick black, almost leather look. Yeah.
Yeah, well, oilskin is kind of like a barber jacket.
Yeah, but one of the guys who was actually arrested for attacking women, who originally claimed to be the Spring Hill Jack, or they thought was Spring Hill Jack, wore a similar outfit. But without obviously any of the other look. He didn't have like claws on his hands or anything else, but because he couldn't spit fire, they basically said it couldn't be him, which is a weird thing in Victorian times to be like the definitive judgment, like being caught attacking women and then going, well, he can't spit fire, so we better let him off.
Yeah. Well, wasn't he arrested for actually attacking a woman though?
Yeah.
So he must have got. He's found guilty of that, but not of any of the other crimes.
So basically, he was convicted of that, but not of being Spring Hill Jack. And then another man, was it in, I want to say Devon or Dorset, was accused of being Spring Hill Jack, who'd assaulted 2 women as well. And he wore like a big bear skin. I think he was a seaman or something, that I remember reading. And I think they linked that to him, which also leads into the shapeshifter thing of maybe he just had like different types of coats, or was maybe a member of the theatre or something, and did go out in slightly different disguises to keep it sort of this image going. The one thing that's always been true about him, though, is his like ability to leap. So,
the Spring Hill.
His claws faded with time. His coat became a cape and then became wings. And his ability, his like red eyes started being less reported, but his ability to breathe fire became more reported. But he's always been able to jump insane distances. So all the other imagery sort of changed, which it does with quite a lot of these things, with as people's perceptions change. But this was something that has always basically remained true, which is quite interesting.
Yeah.
And like the most common was he had a pointed goatee, and at least from a lot of the attacks, he had what's described as burning red eyes. And because of his ability to jump, that earned him the nickname of Spring Hill, because I guess certain people would think if he was able to jump that high, he must have had some sort of, like you say, springed assisted boots or something.
Yeah, which I've not seen any. We don't even have that now, do we? To be fair.
No. So unlikely, but I guess in that invention time of Victorians, that seems like a thing that might.
He had some sort of steampunk-esque dress sense.
Yeah.
With a helmet as well. That's what I read in a few reports.
Yeah, the early ones had him with like a pointed helmet, didn't they?
Yeah, like a German.
Yeah, First World War kind of, but before that happened, like that was interesting. I've read that a few times.
Yeah, he had that, the claws, which you presume would be metal if they were cold, not his actual fingers.
Yeah, like finger extensions or something.
Yeah, but then maybe if he wasn't, that's it. That's if it was a human dressed up, and if he wasn't human, then he could be. His fingers could have been claws and cold.
Yeah, he's really active in the Black Country from about 1855 to the like 1880s. But the fire thing wasn't really reported till like the 1870s. So it'd already been.
Oh, I thought in London
like
there was
30, 40 years.
I thought some of the early reports in London said he would breathe in fire. He was jumping
one
out.
of the first reports said he spit acid.
Oh.
Like an actual like green acid.
Okay.
And then so whether he actually did have a type of thing that was able to spray acid at someone, it didn't come out his mouth. Maybe someone close to him.
But if he was burning something, like to burn blue, like alcohol or something like that.
Yeah, if he like an ethanol. Like a fire type thing.
So if he was wearing a mask of some sort that sprayed it and lit it to go, so it looked like a blue flame, and it failed to light, then it would probably feel like you're spitting acid over someone.
Yeah, definitely. That'd be like a cool supervillain-esque type attire, wouldn't it?
Yeah. So that could imply that it was someone wearing a mask of some sort then.
Yeah.
Because obviously we get fire breathing.
Or people's, again. Or more than one.
One person.
Yeah, more than one person. If there's lots of people,
over the years,
going all about.
It's probably been loads, hasn't it? He was also,
There's definitely some copycats because they caught some, and they know they weren't the people who were originally doing it, which we'll get to right at the end. Most of the attacks were obviously directed at women and were at night, which is a fairly, common. And it's quite just because every time over that sort of 100 years, every time he would fade from consciousness, it'd be a few years, and then something else would happen, and then everyone would start reporting it again. Another mass hysteria outbreak would happen.
But some of the reports were just people seeing him on rooftops and stuff like that. It wasn't.
Yeah, a lot of the end ones towards like the end of the 1800s, just like a man. Yeah, basically a man was seen on an rooftop jumping to another rooftop.
Yeah, which is like a big gap that you could,
Yeah.
That's why they thought it was Springfield Jack.
But like no reports of anyone being attacked. So
wasn't there something about churches as well?
Yeah, that was one. Was that in
that could have just been
1888, Everton, North Liverpool. He was apparently seen on the church of St Francis Xavier, and the last report was in 1904 in William Henry Street, also in Liverpool. But they're not a substantiated report in any way. I think obviously someone mentioned it in a paper, probably for headlines, link the two, but there was no other things around it to say it was that.
When I read the Surrey one in 2012, I thought there was a more recent Sussex one as well.
There's reports in Crawley that I think a year later, but again, the problem I think they got bombarded. Everyone knew the legend by that. If you looked up, it's quite hard to know. There's no police reports about it.
Oh, okay. So
people were phoning in, as far as I know, and writing to blogs and saying I've seen it, and those were reported. But there was like no attacks. The police were never called out. So, and it's quite a famous legend, especially this side of in UK, isn't it? So it'd be quite to find enough information just to say that. So I don't know how much credence the police gave to it. So whether that was ever chased up, which it doesn't look like it was.
Why were they given the name Jack? Is Jack kind of like Jane Doe, like an unknown name? John Doe is someone you don't know their name. So where does Jack come from?
I haven't got anything here, but I don't know why.
Because I know obviously because I was trying to think because you had him, Spring Hill Jack, Jack the Ripper. You've got Jack of the Green. Like free myth and folklore, Jack seems to be quite a popular name.
Yeah, maybe it is a default they use for that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
that's the point. I don't know.
I have to look into it unless someone listens to this and does know why Jack is.
That'd be handy.
But I presume Jack the Ripper was that because he wrote a letter and signed it.
I'm
Jack.
not sure whether they'd already named him and then someone wrote a letter, signed it Jack, or whether it was the other way around.
Because when was Jack the Ripper?
1880s.
So that was around the same sort of time as this. So it's the same similar time.
Yeah.
Did they never think it could have been the same person then?
1888 to 89. It was right at the end of it. See, that's the thing. I don't know, man. Maybe. I don't think anyone ever linked it to it. But yeah, it's around.
Well, I suppose if they wasn't sure what Spring or Jack was human or spiritual or alien. I haven't read anyone else's theory of what it actually is. Just someone dressed up in a costume who can do parkour and has a special mask that sprays it on fire.
I think there's at least one, well, not even copycat, but one prank, which is one of the famous ones at military base.
Right. So this one they shot at him.
Yeah, but reading into that, apparently as a default they used to carry blanks, which I don't know why it was reported. It looks like it was deliberately reported wrong to give it like a paranormal, because they then said after this they then gave them live ammunition.
Oh, so they could have been thinking.
So I think obviously the soldier knew they were shooting blanks.
Just to scare him then?
Yeah, but
See, I heard that same story, but I thought there was bullet holes in the walls where he was.
I haven't seen that one. But that's the problem. I think some of this is like people have written it and then added stuff because it sounds better.
Well, because there was the argument, like, obviously they weren't soldiers, were they? Were they not like home guard or something like that, or
They might have been
armed vigilantes,
and
or
then
whatever, searching for
apparently,
him.
yeah. Then I read they'd actually shot. It happened again in 1878,
Right.
where he was bayoneted.
Oh.
And they discovered he was a junior officer. But then I've read the report again, and that apparently never happened. The attack, well, the prank happened, but apparently no one was ever court-martialed for it, and no name was ever brought to. So, which would be unlikely. If you stab someone, there's no way you'd be like, let's not report that.
No.
So I think obviously he was scared off, and maybe they either recognised the voice and realised it was a junior officer, and no more was done. But I don't think either way, if you're a junior officer getting stabbed or someone who stabs a junior officer, I don't think there's any way you leave that out of a report.
While you're hiding it.
Yeah, so I think it was probably those were probably, which stands to reason. Kids do that these days, don't they? They hear a legend and play it out. So
Chinese whispers, isn't it? It gets different every time you hear it.
Exactly, yeah, and that sort of adds to the mythos, but also makes it really hard to track anything down. And we were saying about we had that discussion, didn't we, about the suspected murders?
Well, yeah, there's two, wasn't there?
Yeah.
One that he threw a child prostitute into a river, or like can't remember what it was called, but it's like pretty much where all the shit goes. In London,
the sewage overflow type thing. Yeah.
Yeah, he threw her into there, and she obviously drowned in. And well, I guess no one was going to jump in to try and save her with that. But he threw her, and then he also scared someone to death, didn't he?
Yeah, but yeah, have a look at those. I think they both come from Peter Hanning's book. He wrote it in the 1970s, and it was the first non-fiction account of it. But when a folklorist tried to track it down and ask him, he said he'd lent all of his sources material to someone else, and they'd all got lost.
Oh, okay.
Because he'd also written that there was a really successful play at the same time about Spring Hill Jack. But the historian, and he's like a historian and folklorist, found literally not a single trace in any of the theatres that play had ever been put on.
Oh, right.
And he said even in the 1880s, if you had a successful play, you'd be able to track it down now.
Oh, maybe it wasn't successful.
Well, he could find no real accounts of anything until the 1900s of a Jack the Ripper play.
Oh, okay.
Of a Spring Hill Jack play at all. Oh, yeah, I guess people didn't, while there was hysteria about it, you probably wouldn't get a successful play out of it.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, people are terrified. They probably don't want to see a play about people being murdered and attacked. Yeah. So there's been a couple of it's been a bit less substantiated, but it's worth mentioning because again it adds to the mythos.
Oh yeah, it's the only two people killed, isn't it?
One girl, by reports, definitely was scared into like a fit, wasn't it? Where she was like a bed rest for like 3 weeks or something.
Well, yeah, but if you have a seizure, then that's going to happen anyway.
Exactly. You don't know if it's a seizure.
And in the
or heart condition or what, you know.
In the mid 1900s, like diseases were rife anyway. Not many people lived past a certain age.
Yeah.
Some of these people who did die, right? When he said someone died of fright, didn't necessarily. It could have been something else they died of.
They had easily an undiagnosed like brain condition or heart condition that any sort of fright or a fall could have like killed them. But it'll get attributed to it because it's easier as well, isn't it? It's a makes a better story. So
just blame Spring Hill Jack for it.
Yeah, but that's kind of what I've gotten it. But it's a really interesting story, and like you say, it's sort of spread. For what I can see, it's sort of spread throughout Europe, and I think America, which makes sense because of our close ties, and a lot of the folklore is quite closely related.
I suppose once there's a name out there of seeing something, like if you see an 8-foot hairy thing, you're going to say it's Bigfoot.
Yeah, no, that's what I mean. Yeah, and I think because of our close ties, there've been a lot of families who would have emigrated at some point, and those stories from like London would just especially if you go to like New York and London aren't that different in terms of like size, population. Yeah, those stories would be quite rife.
Something similar. But they're saying like this could just be mass hysteria, wasn't it? You know,
there could have been someone trying to attack women, and then after that,
is it not like people were going to get attacked when a shadowy figure in foggy London
exactly
is attacking you, and you managed to escape? Who was it? Oh, well, everyone's saying Spring Hill Jack.
And then this Polly Adams apparently as well at a local fair, which is all in October, and then nothing until February the next year. So I mean, that could have all been one person.
You say circus?
At a fair, I think.
Well, like a travelling fair.
I don't know. Local fair, I guess so. If it's a local fair.
Cool. If it's travel, I just wondered if there was a travelling fair around the same sort of time as he was doing it. Maybe it was somebody who worked at the fair.
Yeah, and it makes sense why they look different, because they'd have
Oh yeah, because they had freak shows and everything back then, didn't they?
yeah, and a lot of them were obviously just faked.
Well, the costumes,
Clever use of costumes and stuff like that, weren't they? So
there's a travelling fair around the same sort of times. And if you're going up and down the country, you could explain why you've seen in Liverpool and places if the fair was travelling that way.
Yeah, exactly. That'd be something worth looking into, actually.
But on that conclusion, then we're guessing this person wasn't anything apart from copycats. People getting their kicks from copying him.
Yeah,
it pretty much probably was just a human dressed up in.
Yeah, some fancy clothing.
Yeah, it wasn't like a devil. It wasn't a demon.
No,
it wasn't an extraterrestrial.
No, because there's been a link to people who've said that as well, haven't they?
Yeah, that he might be alien, but chances are it sounds like he was just he could jump, leap high. Like you said, parkour, he could do that. People breathe fire now. It's not impossible to breathe fire.
Again, especially if you were a member of the circus.
Yeah, oil skin is just like he was wearing barber style clothing with that oil.
Yeah.
Or he was wearing maybe. I think is oil skin also like what scuba divers wear?
I don't know. It might have been. I don't know what is that back in the day.
If you Google oil skin, it tends to come up with barber style jacket.
Yeah.
That waterproof outdoors style jacket. So I guess you could make a top hat. You could make clothes out of that. But I don't know if it's also oil skin in the olden days was what scuba divers wore to keep warm when they're in cold waters, which would be tight fitting.
Yeah, it's definitely. It looks like the oil skin is what fishermen wore, like with the giant hats that came down and then the long coats.
Yeah, so
like completely waterproof-esque.
Yeah, which is similar to well, I suppose modern day barber is just a brand name, isn't it? But it's waterproof clothing. So it is that shiny material that maybe a scuba diver would wear or a fisherman.
Yeah.
So it could be tight fitting. Because if it was a scuba suit, then obviously that would be tight.
I don't know. Obviously, scuba diving back in the 1800s, what that was like in terms of
Oh yeah, that's true. Yeah,
I don't know if that existed.
No. So yeah, maybe it was just because it was tight fitting. I was trying to think.
The early 1900s, they had those huge bell ones, didn't they, where they were still connected to like the oxygen up in the boat, like sink. And I think they were oil skin suits with like leaded boots to make you sink down. Yeah.
So maybe it's something like that, just tight fitting.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, we'd have to have a look at some of like the travelling fair type stuff from the 1800s and see what sort of attractions they put on.
Well, yeah, I'm guessing there was strongman. There was.
Yeah, but if anyone would wear that sort of suit for doing something, whether like there was like a trapeze artist who jumped through fire rings or something, because if it might be fire resistant, and you'd want that.
If he's breathing fire, you want some sort of mask.
Yeah.
But like you said, the acid made me think, well, maybe he's spraying the liquid and then it's been ignited rather than spraying it from his mouth. Maybe it's spraying it from a little hose. It was the era of inventions, wasn't it, at that time?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, so that'd be quite interesting actually.
So if it was some rich guy who had money to throw around and buy this sort of stuff as well, it might not have been the travelling fair. It's just interesting that there was a fair there at the same sort of time.
Yeah.
If we can find out the name of the fair and.
Yeah, I'll have to have a look actually, and we'll update.
If it was a family name, the fair, then you could trace it a lot easier. But
if it's not, then it's going to be tougher. But we know the area, so there's probably old newspaper adverts taken out.
Yeah, well, there would have been.
That'd be worth looking for.
Yeah, so 1840s, isn't it? So
there probably is a record somewhere of it, I'd imagine.
Yeah, I don't know when they actually. I presume they started well before the 1800s or 1900s.
To have a look.
Just what they had. It was just what they had there, because obviously, showmanship and fairground show research and our most common exhibit on travelling fairs was the freak or oddity show. Freaks or marvels of Samuel Taylor's travelling his show from the 1840s onwards. That's Sheffield. That was fun. So there was freak shows.
I'd imagine a lot of those used like special suits and stuff to bolster like the appearances and stuff like that. So
yeah,
interesting.
Yeah, I'm sure there's more to find out. I suppose the other thing is saying someone. I suppose if he jumped a fence, you could see how high the fence is. You can physically go and stand next to it, and they could have said, "Yeah, he jumped this fence," and you could go, "Okay, that's bigger than me." So that's.
Yeah, you should be able to have a rough estimate. And
but just seeing someone
over a 5-6 foot fence standing, I mean, that's still an epic jump, to be honest.
Yeah, but I mean, just you can physically go and check it. Like obviously, from a distance, they could. Well, it might have been a gap in the fence that he went through.
Yeah.
Just because he suddenly was there and then wasn't. Like the recent one where he said he jumped over an embankment.
Yeah, we could actually go there and have a look in terms of what that embankment actually means when you say a 15-foot embankment.
at night time and you're driving past at a reasonable speed and you just see me jump in the air,
Yeah.
I could probably run up that embankment and then a couple of steps clear it. And if you just caught me out the corner of your eyes, you're driving past, it might look like I cleared it. Especially if you can just drop down behind it out of sight. It's weird. I'm guessing they're only saying it's Spring Hill Jack because they saw him jump. What did they say? 15-foot embankment.
Yeah.
This
Like
is-
a black shape ran across the road in front of them, in front of their car, and jumped a 15-foot embankment.
Well, that could be anything, couldn't it? That could be an actual wild animal.
Yeah, I mean that could have been, a
That
big
could be a big.
sighting.
Yeah, it could be a black cat. Black cats can jump pretty high, can't they? They jump into trees and stuff.
Yeah, we'd have to have a look at that. But like I say, that's the whole thing, isn't it? You don't know what those people. If those people were into the same stuff we are, they might naturally go to that kind of thing.
Yeah, you know, actually go, whoa, what was that? Well,
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Well, back then, minus the copycats who obviously got caught and practical jokers just trying to scare women, like, frat boys or whatever you want to call them, rich, upper class bored kids in London going out and scaring women and drinking. Because if the first three, say they were the original ones and then the fair's gone and he's gone off with it.
Yeah.
And then appears, wherever it goes next, ends up in Liverpool 10 years later. But you don't hear of reports in rural towns that they've been to in between.
They didn't probably
Well,
have
some
much
people
way of reporting stuff back then either, to be honest.
But you can only report it if you're a survivor of it, surely. No one actually, if Bigfoot is violent, no one knows because they're not necessarily survived the people who haven't survived the attack haven't reported it.
Yeah.
So, Spring Hill Jack may have actually hurt people rather than just tearing at clothes and groping and jumping around scaring people. He might have actually gone on to actually hurt more people. That just wasn't reported because
There was none.
there was no witnesses to report it or survivors.
Yeah.
We all know about Jack the Ripper removing body parts of his victims and stuff like that. There was obviously other murders going on at the same time that were never publicised.
Yeah.
Or, were as famous as or infamous as that. Who'd say none of them aren't the victims of Spring Hill Jack? It's interesting.
Yeah.
For someone to have been around that long, there must be other cases that just never got reported. Or maybe got confused by other cases that were happening at the same time.
Yeah, I'm guessing also once like the Jack the Ripper murders, that was basically the end of Spring Hill Jack in terms of anyone caring, wasn't it?
Yeah, because that was a lot bigger. This guy was stalking prostitutes and removing body parts.
Yeah.
So that
was definitely a tangible person, so. Right, well, thank you all for watching, everybody, and listening. And we will see you again next week for another episode.
Don't forget to check us out on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter.
Yeah, drop us a like or share us. That'd be great. Thank you very much.
Personal stories. Email us some personal stories.
Yeah, that'd be fantastic.
I want to read it. I want to hear personal encounters from people that we can then read out maybe on our podcasts.
Yeah, especially if we can get a few that are a similar type and we can get a collection, do a whole episode on it. That'd be fantastic.
Drop us an audio file of you telling the story. It'd be a lot better. Then maybe we could just loop them together and we've got an episode.
Yeah, that'd be great. See you all later. Bye.
See you later. Take care, everyone. Stay safe.
In